My wife, 32 at the time of this story, went to college with this girl that became her best friend. They party like wild women, so much so that it's a wonder my wife didn't flunk out of college. I, 35, met my wife on her first day at work. I was already working there for a few years before she was hired, so I was in charge of showing her the ropes. Eventually we got married, which brings us to where the story begins. After we were married 6 years, her crazy college friend finally got engaged. My wife was surprised. Her friend was even willing to settle down and perhaps invite her because she got more time as a single lady, or whatever. We agreed early on, as a married couple, that she wouldn't remain close to this girl anymore for our relationship's sake one night. Shortly after she found out her friend was engaged, she told me she was going to spend the evening with her parents and wouldn't be back until after dinner. This wasn't totally weird, so I said that was fine. I went to take out the trash and could see something like a postcard through the side of the bag. Curiosity got the better of me, so I read it through the plastic. It was an invitation to a bachelorette party that very night. It was being held in the city at a men's strip club. I drove there without hesitation. I didn't want my wife looking at other men or becoming influenced to act like the party girl she grew out of. I just started asking women around for my wife or the bride by name. Eventually I found a woman that said they left the party a short while ago with 2 men. When I asked where they went, she hesitated to tell me. I begged and bribed her, so she gave me a hotel name. I could not believe this was happening. I started calling my wife's number over and over until I arrived in the lobby. She wouldn't answer. I asked the receptionist for their hotel room, but she wouldn't tell me. I waited for a while until I saw her come off the elevator with a man. He looked quite pleased, and so did my wife, until she looked up and saw me standing in their path. She gasped and covered her mouth, and tears started flowing uncontrollably. When AP was told I was her husband, he looked away, down and grimaced. It wasn't his problem. I asked what just happened, and my wife just looked stuck. She managed to speak. I asked her again what they did, but she just stared at me, but couldn't answer me. I pulled away and said I wasn't taking her back home. She just cheated on me. She couldn't function, so she sat on the lobby floor and cried. Her friend came down and was shocked at the sight, and had told her friend. Eventually we were sitting in my car, but before I drove anywhere, she told me she couldn't help it. Having some fun with her friend. Fun that I wouldn't approve of. Or honoring the vows we took together. And did it anyway. She said after being married for a while, she was longing for something exciting to happen. At this point, I heard enough. I summarized for her that she felt bored and unimpressed with our relationship, so she cheated on me. Then I told her I was done and wouldn't forgive her for this. I didn't want to be married to her anymore, so she started wailing. She got out of the car after I asked a few times, and I drove away. Her brother ended up letting her stay with him and came to my house to get her stuff a week later. After a month, he was tired of having her live with him. She was miserable and couldn't bring herself to go to work or find hope in the future. She called me all the time, asking me what I was doing and begging to come over. I said no every time. I didn't want to be around her or be persuaded to let her back into my life. Women can be slippery snakes when they want to be, and after she proved herself to be like that, I couldn't take any chances. I said no repeatedly, until I just stopped answering her calls. I don't plan on ever being taken advantage of again, but if this taught me anything, it's that I can't control what my spouse does. I can only trust and act in self-defense if necessary. Even though I loved her for many years, I knew I could do the same for another woman someday. It's been 2 years, and my ex still lives at her brother's house. Now they hate each other, and she's become bitter that I never forgave her for one night of fun. Despite thinking she deserved this night of fun, now she preaches on social media about how wrong partying and drinking is. I am sorry. Your wife lied to you and chose to cheat on you at her friend's bachelorette party. She made it clear that what she wanted, no matter how bad it was more important than you. She felt bad about it when she was caught, but only because she didn't plan on getting caught. She became bitter because she never thought her choices would bring undesired consequences. She made it seem like the years you spent together was like putting her life on hold, and no one should be made to feel that way. What she did was completely unfair and unforgivable. I am so glad you found the invitation, and then her too. As sucky as that night was, at least you found out the truth for yourself. You're very wise not to let her back into your life, not even for a second. I wish you the best of luck going forward. Now for today's second story. My wife, 27, had a major problem with comparing herself to her younger, prettier sister Madison. Madison remained single and never gave up pursuing her dream career. She was quite successful and have a TikTok fanbase, which just irritated the crap out of my wife. But she never admitted she felt this way about her sister. Sometimes she vented to me about it, but she always backled afterward by expressing love for Madison. My wife even went so far as to ask while we were dating, and even after we were married, if I wished I met her sister instead. I always said, of course not, that I believed we were meant to be together, and she deserved to have a happy life apart from her sister, regardless of what she was doing with her life. Well, my wife never got the message I was trying to give. She kept stalking her sister and comparing our life to other people. However, on the phone to her sister directly, she was supportive and never gave any signs of jealousy. Everything really fell apart when Madison got engaged. We agreed to meet them for dinner, and of course, her fiancé was a well-together, successful man. They suited each other, and I was happy for them, but my wife wasn't. She pretended to be, but as soon as we got in the car, she started acting weird. She was quiet and on her phone more often. I was pretty sure she was stalking Madison's fiancé on social media. She started acting a little more friendly towards me again after a few days, and over the next 3 weeks, she met with her sister a few times without me while I was at work. The first time, she didn't tell me about it. I was working late, but I found out she left the house because the security alarm kept a time-stamped record of all our comings and goings. After she went out more times, I asked her what was going on. She said she was meeting with Madison because she was starting to have second thoughts about trusting her fiancé. This didn't make sense to me because they looked happy and confident together when I met them. I started looking at Madison's Facebook while my wife was supposedly meeting with her. She looked fine with her man and even posted happy wedding planning updates. I finally messaged her, asking if she was with her sister right now. She said no and asked why. My heart sank and I replied, explaining that she told me she'd been meeting with her a few times this week. I could tell she started to work because she said her fiancé had been going to the gym much more often. She told me she was going to calling him to see if he answered, but he didn't. We couldn't see either of their locations either. She went to the gym, but AP wasn't there, so without any other options, we waited for them to come home. Madison texted me that AP arrived at her house at the exact same time my wife pulled into her driveway. When she walked in, I freaked out. I tried to remain calm, but my voice started cracking, so I started yelling. I told her I knew she wasn't with her sister, and her fiancé was missing too. She actually had the nerve to accuse me of liking her sister after all, since I admitted to messaging her. Before I could say a word, she said that I could have her sister now, because she wanted a divorce. I was absolutely shocked by the words she was saying. I told her I didn't like Madison. She only helped me to figure out she was lying to me. I demanded to know where she was and why she wanted a divorce. Now she said Madison's fiancé AP loved her now. He realized how amazing she was compared to her little sister, who was fearing commitment. I looked her straight in the eye and told her she was crazy and cruel for taking her sister's man from her when they seemed so happy. I insulted her, so she slapped me and walked out the door with luggage she packed in advance. She was acting so ridiculous, like she thought AP and her were meant to be, and by leaving me as quickly as possible, she'd be with him forever. I called Madison, and she answered it, even though she was in the middle of screaming at AP. I heard him crying and apologizing to her. She dismissed him and went into another room to tell me what he told her, that my wife persuaded him to meet with her a few times so she could get to know the man her sister was going to marry. She told him she wanted to keep it a secret for Madison and me, because we would overreact then. She convinced him to have sex as some sort of messed up way to prove he was worthy of loving Madison. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was so messed up. I could only apologize to her on behalf of her sister, because she ruined her plans to marry the man of her dreams. AP regretted it immediately and begged Madison's forgiveness. She was crying on the phone with me, and I asked her what we should do. With barely a moment's hesitation, she told me she was dumping him. I told her I'd divorce my wife because neither of them deserved us. We made some kind of survival pact to get through this and come out wiser. 1 year later, Madison and I are seeing each other regularly. Our relationship is slowly turning into a romance. AP moved away as soon as he realized he wasn't going to get her forgiveness. He didn't even consider getting a place with my wife because she was only a mistake. When my ex realized that's how he felt about her and he was gone, she started calling me every day, several times a day, to beg me for a sleepover or coffee cake. And a chat. I declined every time and only answered the phone if she wouldn't stop calling. She started camping in the yard, so I got restraining order after the divorce was final. She was camping in the yard when her sister came over to hang out with me, and she lost her mind. I was prepared to call the police if she tried to come in the house, but thankfully she wasn't that much of a threat. Since she had leave due to the restraining order and trespassing, I didn't hear from her again. Last update I heard was that her dad had to bail her out of jail for something stupid. Your wife sure had some kind of crazy obsession with her sister's life. It ruined her and only proved what she feared the most, that her sister was a better woman than her. Comparison can suck away anything good in someone's life. It was your wife's responsibility to be a mature woman who knew what was important in marriage: communication, honesty, and selflessness. She didn't know how to be an honestly supportive sister either. She'll never get to have a meaningful relationship with someone if she doesn't learn how to be selfless and honorable. Stay grateful and content with everything you find in life. You did the right thing by refusing to give your wife a second chance after behaving like this. You're an example to others going through this level of betrayal. Thank you for sharing with us. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. Also, comment below with your thoughts on what happened. Take care.